Hi there! So far in our synth building blocks series, we've talked about the oscillator, which produces our raw audio waveforms that we can control the pitch of. Then the filter, which carves away the harmonics and controls the tone. And then the VCA, which gives us control over volume. And that is the entirety of the audio signal path of an analog subtractive synth. In other words, we have control over the pitch, timbre, and amplitude of our sound. But ultimately, that is all we will ever hear with our ears. Now that's great, and you can create some fun tones with this, but it's not a musical instrument until we breathe life into it with musical expression. And on a synthesizer, we achieve that with modulation, which is a fancy word for animating our sound, or making these sound parameters dynamically change over time. There are two main types of modulators, but the first I will talk about is the LFO. LFO stands for Low Frequency Oscillator, and it produces waveforms exactly like the main audio oscillators, but instead of producing audible tones, it produces cyclic motions that can be used to control the synth's architecture. They generally run at much slower frequencies than the audio oscillators because that's where they really shine, and you'll hear why. So here, I've got a static oscillator with some simple filtering. Cool, but I want the filter to move back and forth like this without having to do it myself. So, as I increase the LFO's influence on the filter cutoff, we begin to hear the effect of the LFO. Note that the LFO's light shows us exactly where it is in its cycle, and we hear that reflected in the filter motion. We can also change the rate of this LFO to our liking. Now look how slow it's moving back and forth. The lowest frequency that humans can hear is 20 Hertz, or 20 oscillations per second. This is going much slower than that, so if we plug this LFO directly into a speaker, we wouldn't hear anything anyway. But that's not the point. We're not trying to hear the LFO, we're trying to hear what the LFO can do to our sound. Now this LFO's wave shape is currently a triangle, so it smoothly runs up and down. And if we look at this on the sonogram, which allows us to see the time dimension as well, you can see the exact shape of the LFO. So let's hear the other shapes. Here's a triangle. Here is an upward saw. Then a downward saw. How about a square wave? Now, just because the LFO is designed for lower frequencies doesn't mean it can't oscillate faster. In fact, it can oscillate far faster and far more consistently than you could ever turn a knob by hand, which is why synths can sound like no other instrument. Note how once I bring the LFO frequency into audio range, it starts distorting the sound in a really unique way that brings out brand new textures. And to wrap things up on modulation, any modulation has three parts: a source, a destination, and an intensity amount. Currently, our source is LFO1 right here, our destination is the filter cutoff frequency, and the amount is about, well, yay. Don't forget that you can assign this LFO to do almost anything you want within the synth. So far, we've just heard it modulate the filter, but you can modulate pitch, how about pulse width of a square wave? Every synth offers its own unique modulation capabilities, but the possibilities are endless. And that's all for modulation and LFOs. Thanks for watching.